This is our brother Adam, and I love sharing my brothers with everybody. Whatever you got to say, Adam, got
Hey,
the
well,
whole world listening.
let's do introductions first. I think most of the people watching this probably know me, or we have met at some point. But my name's Brother Adam. I met a man when I was 17 years old. Met him physically, and I'll share quickly from watching your videos. I know you like to share with people the spiritual part of a man meeting a man and what happens to him leading up to that event. So I'll try not to digress and trail off on parts of that story. I'll stay on point. So for me, it was pretty basic. I was 17 or 16, and I met a couple brothers at a sister I knew's house. Back then, I smoked weed with my friends. That's what you did in the 80s. And it was 1980. So anyway, I go over to her house, and there's a couple brothers in white robes there, Gerald and Stephen and another brother. And I just fell in love with the guys. I really didn't hear much of what they had to say, but I just fell in love with them. And at that point, a lot of like what you've experienced in life, Amen had already instilled in me certain things in my life, like vegetarian. I was on a crazy diet called macro diet, chew your drink and drink your food. So anyway, I was already in that mode. And I just fell in love with the guys. Man, they're the best feeling. People are great. And then one day they just vanished. And I go over and I talk to the sister, and she was kind of a hippie chick, a little all over the map. They called them rainbow people, but basically hippie mentality of the 80s. And they're gone. They're in the wind, and I was freaking out. Where'd they go? Where'd they go? Where are the brothers? So anyway, about a year later, I'm 17, and my dad had a construction company in South Florida, and I go out to look at a patio, concrete patio estimate, and I knock on the door, and I see through the door a brother named Luke and another brother Bob. And I've been looking for the brothers for a year. Like, where did they go? So anyway, we hook up, we connect, and I was dating a really nice lady, really nice sister, high school friend, and we had started dating, and we met the brothers, and he was telling me about Amen. That Amen was the Lord back on earth, and just where they were coming from, there was something there. I couldn't pin down what it was, but I knew that okay, man, I got to check this out. I got to check this out. I'd never met a person that had a vibration like that. That okay, cool. So anyway, we hang out for a while. It's time to hit the wind. We hit the wind. Gerald and a sister went with us, and we jump in a van and we take off in white robes. We're going to meet Amen. So, we take off and we're headed out and we get up. And the whole thing was our life plan, me and the sister, was to work really hard, save our money, buy a cabin up in the mountains, and go chill out and live with nature, right? And the first place we went was Cherokee, North Carolina. And we get to this mountain cabin. And this brother says, "You guys can have this. You can have it." And we look at each other and go, this was going to be our whole life plan. We were going to work our whole life just to get this. And the first thing we're offered on our journey in faith is, here's your dream. And we looked around, and it's a beautiful spot. You could land a rock in the Smoky Mountain National Forest. It was up in the mountain, just gorgeous. And we said, nah, we got to bail. Let's go meet Amen. So it was really far out that was given to us so quickly. So don't want to digress and hang up in the intricacies. So anyway, we take off. We go see another brother or sister in the van. We run into some more brothers, and they the brothers said, "No, no, no! You got to walk. You got to walk. You can't take your van." Took all my money, took everything I had, left me with $3. And me and this sister, we've only been on the road what, I don't know, 10 days, and they drop us off somewhere in Arkansas, kick us out, and say, "See you in California."
So you're in white robes and
Yes,
bare feet.
yes, yeah, yeah, we're in our whites. I didn't, yeah, right on. So anyway, we get kicked out on the interstate. And, we were left like $4, $700 on me to go meet Amen. And it's like, no, can't have no money, can't have no driver's license. No, gotta go. Okay, we were cool. We're cool with it. This is an adventure. But before we left, with all my heart, I prayed to the Father, please, man, Father, please. Such an earnest prayer. If this amen guy is not who these brothers are telling me, don't let me make it to him. Keep me away from him. Because there's that whole thing in the scriptures. Many will pop up, and that's a slick trick. It has factual nature to it, but it's also designed to keep you away from amen. So, it's like really earnest in that prayer. So when we start the first day that Highway 40 in Arkansas, we get dropped off. Man, we walking barefoot, and we're tenderfoot still. And the side of the road in Arkansas is gravel pitched on top of tar. And it's really narrow. And the side of the road is all thorns and whatever. So we get out of the rig, or we get on the highway. First car pulls up, 3 dudes in a Volkswagen. They go, hey, what are you guys doing? Blah, 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 blah. And we said, well, we're going to meet this guy named Lightning Amen, man. We're told the Lord's back on earth and we're going to go check it out. So first thing you got to do is you got to live in faith. So we gave everything we had materially away, which wasn't a lot because we were young, trucks, boat, whatever you had, small business. So we gave everything we have away and we're going to meet this guy, Amen, and check him out. So one guy says, man, that's the coolest thing ever. The other guy, he says, man, I ain't touching this one. And the third guy goes, you guys are nuts, man. And I looked over at the sister and I said, you know what? The Father just showed us the 3 states of mind that we're going to encounter on this journey. She looked at me and she goes, you know what? You're right. So anyway, we smoked a joint with him or something, and we take this ride. And the one guy, he's fascinated by us. And the other 2 were playing the characters they were playing for, us to be taught the state of minds we were going to hit. So anyway, that first day, and that happens first. And as soon as we get out of the car, it was like everything we spoke. We're walking down the Highway 40, just a few minutes, beautiful day. And I look over at the sister and I said, man, I'm getting a little thirsty. And from the fast lane on 40, this guy screeches on his brakes, stops, and he's about 40 yards up the road, right? He gets out of his car, pops the trunk. His trunk is loaded with ice. It has every fruit juice, every soda pop. I don't know where this guy was going or what he was doing or if it was just an angel, amen, manifested. But, I look at her as soon as we spoke that, he slams on his brakes, gets out, opens his truck, stands at the back of the trunk, and he's waiting on us. And we're like, So we walk on up, and man, it looked like a Sunkist commercial. Everything you could think of. I said, thirsty, huh, sis? And just the whole day was a miracle like that. Anything we spoke instantly was given and manifested. It was such a magical day. And, to the last event of the day, I'm going to not digress and I'll skip a couple because you get the premise of where I'm going. The last event of the day was, we're walking back down the road and the on ramp, and I looked at her. I said, "Hey, have you ever rode in a semi?" She said, "No." Instantly, bah, bah, bah. And that was the end of the day. We got in the semi, man, and we are just looking at each other, man. I kid you not. She was 18, I was 17, and we're like, man, I really got to meet this amen guy because I told her my prayer, and I knew the Father. I knew the Father would not let me be deceived because it was with all my heart. And that was, you know, kind of the cruise, and that's where, like, I watch your videos, and a lot of what, and it's so beautiful how you try to share with people. You're trying to share with people this joyous experience you've had with amen so that they can have it also. You don't make it personal with people. And I've watched them, and it's a trait that, you're giving me that gift. And like how we act with each other, we're starting to receive each other's gifts, and it's beautiful. So anyway, I finally we get out to California. All these adventures that have to be a separate podcast. And but by the time I make it to Amen's presence, which took us, I don't know, few weeks from Arkansas, California. It's stuck in the desert for a week with no food, no water. We go from Magic Land to sitting in Vidal Junction at 120 degrees
Yeah.
for a week. It's like, hey man, where'd you go? Did I do something wrong? I mean, I thought this was the pleasure cruise.
Mm.
This was heavenly, and now I'm stuck here. And it was really cute too because we met this brother. There's nothing there. We're eating ketchup and a piece of bread that a brother at a gas station worked at, an old abandoned motel there. So and we sit there. So we go from that really beautiful thing to crusty bread and a little bit of ketchup for 7 days. And then finally, we caught a ride, and guy was coming back, and he drops us off in the area, and it was just the magic of spiritually knowing before I even met him, yep, he's the Lord, and I knew it before I met him, and that was the magic of being introduced to Amen. But like a lot of what you cover in your videos is, faith, right? It takes a certain thing instilled in a person to be able to walk in a white robe barefoot. It's a calling that really blessed to be a part of. There were times I'd wish I'd never done it in the spaces and seasons I was in. There were times because it's hard. It's hard to live in a community and overcome yourself. It took me a long time, like the relationship I have with you now. I went from who does this guy think he is? It's you. I was thinking about it before the interview. You call it frac.
Fractured flickers.
I've had such a hard time saying that all day, knowing I was going to do this podcast with you, right? I'm practicing fractured flickers. I didn't practice anything else, but and I'm laughing at myself for doing this, right? But like our experiences together, there was a time, I thought you were an arrogant idiot, and but we can't see past our own minds a lot of times, and it's like that ego, and you speak of it a lot in the videos, that and you use yourself really well. I admire that about your podcast, that that ego of it robs you. You're totally different than me, but now I've went from that state of being with you to where your gifts become mine when I open my heart.
Amen.
And now I'm sitting here and I'm like, it's like it's almost like being married. We had a communion last night after Sabbath, and it's like being married. This really joyous communion happens to you, or this really cool thing happens, or some bucks fell into your lap, or something really cool Amen did in your life. The first thing you want to do is go see your brothers. It's, hey, check out this cool thing that happened, right?
I do this just to let you know we're getting close to 15 minutes. So,
Okay,
yeah.
all right,
So we can do two. We
okay,
don't
that's
have to
cool.
just do one.
All right. Well, I'm trying to not digress and stay on the point of spiritually, what did you go through meeting Amen? And then when you met him physically, how did that hit you? Right. So I told the story recently to the brothers, but I met Amen at Shelter Island in 1981, I guess. And I went through this experience where we're vegetarians. I'm young, I'm green, I don't know much. And these guys come in a boat and I set their fish free. Terrible choppy day. They were out there a lot. So anyway, my first encounter with Amen is I end up in front of his van after doing this, and he looks at me and I tell him the story, and he goes, "Couple young guys," and they were pissed, of course. I'm not going to go into the details of it, but Amen looks at me, and he looks me straight in the eye, very sternly. First thing he said to me was, "I know men who will kill you for less than that action. Don't challenge evil. I've got this covered, man." So and that really shot me into another place of like, okay, right, right. And then the whole journey since then has been learning to trust in him. But yeah, I knew he was the Lord back on earth, before I met him, before I got here.
That's my witness.
Yeah.
You know, and the commonality of the stories that we all have.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I have
It's,
stories almost identical
yeah.
to stories I hear from brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
You know,
It's,
common
it's so cool.
experience that Amen gave us. That
Yeah.
it's part of what joins us together.
Yeah. Well, and it's a fascinating movie. Like for me, it's the only game in town simply because it calls on me to go deeper, to, look at myself before I look at someone else. And the point, like in being a son of God, as you progress, you learn that the point is not to, you know, take what you know is right and use it as a hammer on your brother. It's to take what you know is right and stay in a humble, kind place and wait for Amen's hand to hand it to him when Amen sees he's ready to receive it. It's not just to, you know, hey buddy,
Yeah,
it's like, brother, I love you, man. Please accept this gift. And that's cool. And then and the brotherhood right now to bring it to the here and now, 44 years later, everything I've seen and everyone I've met, I don't sit in front of anybody, including this camera, and tell you I know who Amen is. I know of Amen. He asked me one time, "Do you know who I am?" And I said, "No, I've never claimed to.
that's
I've
powerful.
only claimed to know of you.
Amen.
To get to know you will take forever, and I still will not compare." You know, he said, "Well, you're an honest man, Adam." Well, he slapped my old lady on the shoulder at the time I was married and said, "Well, you got your honest one there, kiddo." And that's still the way I feel. But the beauty of this moment for me, and I don't care how anybody else sees it, I mean, I'm just the love that Amen's pouring out on the brothers and sisters that truly are convicted. They're all in, brothers, and we're all in. It is hard to live with a group of people and the frickered,
Fractured flickers.
fractured flickers that happen. What used to annoy the crap out of me is just simply a chance to love more. To a brother, he's coming from the right place, man. His heart's in the right place. Man, it's just a chance. That don't matter. My brothers matter, man. And I'm watching my brothers. We can sit in a circle now, a handful of us, and we're seeing everything that's going on in the moment exactly the same. And that is the rarest thing happening on earth that I'm aware of. And I think with that, we're going to have to close on this
I say a big amen, brother.
one. Amen.
That was beautiful.
Right on. Sure is, man.